Angela, dressed in a long red gown, was sitting in the corner with a drink in her hand. She was surrounded by her usual group of fair-weather friends who took turns complimenting her. Hotel Finest is not cheap, Angela. Anthony must have big plans in mind, right? Is he going to propose? He must be proposing, I'm sure of it. Isn't your sister back? That's the end of it, right? Their engagement can officially be considered cancelled. Hey, what is she doing here? Alarmed, Angela turned to look toward the entrance. Nora had dressed just as casually that evening as in the previous days since her return to California. She was expressionless. Yet her looks were eye-catching and beautiful. She drew the attention of the entire party as soon as she entered the room. The moment she walked into the bar, a waiter rushed to the back to hiss to Anthony, "Mr. Gray, she's here." Anthony stood up immediately. "This is it. Get ready." The loud music in the bar gave Nora a headache, and she was quickly filled with an overwhelming sense of irritation. She looked around the bar indifferently. When she spotted Angela, she headed over toward her. Before she had made it very far, she heard her sister sneer pretentiously, "Why are you here, Nora? Anthony will never agree to meet you." Her friends were quick to chime in. "Nora, you must have heard that Anthony is going to propose tonight. Don't make a scene. You were the one who screwed around, cheating and getting yourself pregnant before the wedding." Nora wasn't interested in what they had to say. She focused on Angela. "Tell me where my son is." Angela approached her with a sardonic smile. She pointed to the sofa and spoke so that only the two of them could hear. "Nora, if you sit down nicely, watch tonight's show all the way through, give me and Anthony your blessing for everyone to hear, if you do that, I'll tell you." Nora sat on the sofa and leaned back. Angela stared at her fiercely. She didn't understand how her sister could stay so calm. It made her look so foolish in comparison every time. She clenched her fists, searching for something to hurt Nora with. Suddenly, she said, "Hey, Nora, don't you ever wonder what things would have been like if you hadn't been fat?" Nora's eyes suddenly flew open. "What did you say to me?" Her obesity had been caused by hormonal injections in her childhood. Years later, she had discovered that her original prescription had been wrong. Seeing that Nora's expression had finally changed, Angela laughed arrogantly. With a venomous look in her eyes, she said, "We're both Smiths, so why should you be the one to marry into the Greys? We had to do something to even things out. Messing with your meds worked out perfectly in the long run, just like Mom said it would. Look around. Sure enough, Anthony has fallen in love with me." Nora was stunned at Angela's words. Is she really saying that she and her mother purposefully did that to me? Anger roiled in Nora's eyes. She was on the edge of losing her temper. Suddenly, all the lights in the bar went out, and the music came to an abrupt stop. 2 seconds later, a white spotlight shone at the center of the dance floor. Anthony was standing in the light, wearing a white suit, looking as handsome and elegant as ever. He was holding a guitar in his hands. He gently hummed a popular, familiar love song. Although it wasn't exactly a pro performance, it was a decent rendition. Angela covered her mouth. Her eyes were filled with joyful surprise. This is so romantic. She turned to the side excitedly and sneered at Nora. "Do you see this? Anthony never did anything like this for you. Look at everything he does for me. I'm worth 10 of you." Angela felt like she was flying. Then she saw Anthony slowly walking step by step toward her with a bouquet of roses in his hands. The surrounding crowd cleared a path for him, like an ocean parting. Angela straightened her back. She couldn't help but take a few steps toward him. She knew this day was the highlight of her life. She didn't notice that Anthony only had eyes for someone else. Angela stopped a few steps away from him. Watching him come nearer and nearer, her smile blossomed uncontrollably. This is it. He's about to get down on one knee. It's happening. Angela watched in utter confusion, unable to process what was happening, as Anthony walked past her and stopped in front of Nora instead. He bent down and offered Nora the roses in a suave gesture. "Miss Anderson, may I have the honor of making your acquaintance?" Angela's eyes widened in astonishment as she stared at the scene in disbelief. He was about to say something, but Angela couldn't control herself anymore. She screamed, "Anthony!" It was only when he heard her voice that Anthony finally noticed Angela standing behind him. He frowned and asked, "What are you doing here?" Angela was still fantasizing that perhaps Anthony had mistaken someone else for her in the darkness. But his question shattered her hopes. She glared at Nora angrily. "You bitch. You can't have him." She raised her hand to strike Nora. Anthony immediately jumped in to stop her. With a stern look, he snapped, "What are you doing, Angela? Don't make a scene." Angela's cheeks flushed angrily. "Are you actually defending her? Do you know?" "Enough," Anthony interrupted her. "Look at yourself, Angela. You're a mess. Can't you be more like Miss Anderson? Try getting some of her charm and charisma." Angela was stunned. "Who did you say she was? Don't you know who she is?"
How will Angela react now that Anthony has chosen Nora over her in such a public setting? How will Nora react to discovering that Angela and her stepmother were behind her health struggles? To find out, download the Pocket FM app now. Link in the description. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more gripping stories